Hello, I'm here at the IR Magazine and Corporate Secretary ESG Integration Forum. My name is Laurie Havelock. I'm here with Ben Constable-Maxwell, the Head of Sustainable and Impact Investing at M&G Investments. Ben, welcome to today's event. You've been speaking on one of our panels today. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about exactly how M&G Investment engages on ESG issues.
Yeah, so it's really fundamental to our ESG integration program. And it's fundamental really to how we invest. Stewardship has always been crucial to us. In terms of the sort of ESG engagement approach, we really try and take a targeted approach. Companies that we invest in, that we recognise we can have an impact through engagement. We focus on the most material issues. You know, we don't engage on exactly the same things for every company across sectors, but we focus on what are the most relevant issues for that company and really target those issues and try and get improvements in that space. We also, I think, try and take a collaborative internally and external approach. So in other words, we join up with our ESG team and the equities and credit analysts and also the fund managers to try and sort of make sure we're giving a joined up voice to the company through our engagement program. But increasingly, I think on things like climate change, there is a kind of growing collaboration across investors in the market generally. So we join up with other investors through certain collaborative engagement platforms that really help us, I think, amplify our voice as an investment community to companies on key issues as well.
And speaking about that collaboration, obviously regulators are taking an increasing look at this and other constituents as well. The EU Action Plan on Sustainable Investing was one of these, was something we didn't get a chance to talk about on panel today. Can you tell us a little bit more about the impact you feel that will have and how you're taking that to impact your own activities?
Yeah, I think the action plan is really it's going to be such a central driver of the integration of ESG and sustainability in the market generally. You know, it's got a sort of number of different elements, some of which are being implemented now, some of which will be some time to come. But I think in terms of really changing behaviour, the taxonomy is something we think will be really very, very impactful. And it will help to define, I mean, its intention is to define economic activities from companies that are aligned with sustainability versus those that aren't. And albeit it's quite a hard taxonomy, I think, to devise. It's very, very complex. But at some point when it's got right, it will really, I think, define what is sustainable behaviour and not. And I think companies that will align with that program will be advantaged, and investors will be more willing to invest in them. I think it'll really start it'll start determine discount rates that investors apply onto companies and sectors. So we think it will drive change. I think the other element is disclosure. A central part of the EU Action Plan is to improve disclosure from companies, but also from investors. When we have to report more clearly on our ESG approaches and performance, we have to rely on companies to disclose that to us as well. So I think that will be a huge driver of, again, behavioural change, the need to disclose and be more transparent about the risks and opportunities you face.
Absolutely. And another thing that I guess is an interesting point of discussion is that maybe some of these data points we were talking about 10 or 15 years ago would have been considered alternative data, something that investors weren't interested in. When it comes to your current integration of so-called alternative data, are there any other sources that you're looking at that are perhaps a little off the beaten track?
Yeah, I mean, you know, ESG data, as you say, used to be considered to be relatively sort of differentiated. But ESG data has really become, I think, mainstream financial data. It to the degree that it's material, it is mainstream analytical data. We do think there's a raft of different alternatives coming out there, and I think some of those are around climate change. Some of the tools that we are using are enabling us to consider the different scenarios that companies are prepared for or not prepared for. So using climate-related or climate-focused scenario analysis. Part of that, you know, is around geospatial mapping of physical physical properties and physical assets, and applying climate models to assess how those assets are exposed to different climate change scenarios and different extreme weather outcomes from those scenarios. So that's kind of quite new stuff that we're using, but it's quite quickly become, I think, or is becoming part of the mainstream toolkit for investors. But also that you can apply that, I think, physical mapping in all sorts of other ways. So increasingly investors are able to use satellite imagery to assess whether companies, for example, whether their commitments to deforestation are actually being implemented, or whether it's just a kind of a hazy intention which isn't really being followed through. And I think AI, not just AI or machine learning, is a great tool to improve, in very general terms, is a great tool and is increasingly being used by us, but other investors too, to kind of assess the consistency between what a company says it's doing and what it actually is doing, whether companies are walking the talk. So it improves the efficiency with which we can peruse and assess data out in the public domain, and saves tens of thousands of analysts' hours, but it helps us come to better investment decisions and keeps the pressure on companies that we're investing in to do a good job.
Absolutely, and this is what I guess we're all here to do and to put forward. Ben, thank you so much for your time. We'll speak to you later.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.